Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you love captivating stories about men transforming into women in unique and fascinating ways, then be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Now, let's jump right into today's tale.
Kristin sat at her massive glass desk, her fingers lightly drumming against the smooth surface as she reviewed everything one last time. The gentle tapping of her perfectly manicured nails created a soft rhythm that matched her quickening heartbeat. The desk itself was a statement piece. Custom-designed Milanese glass atop a brushed platinum frame that probably cost more than Kyle's entire apartment. 30 minutes to convince some tech billionaire that I'm worth my exorbitant fee, she murmured, adjusting a portfolio that was already perfectly aligned with the edge of her desk. No pressure. She had spent the past hour going through files, emails and notes, and somehow she understood all of it. The design concepts, the material specifications, the architectural considerations, it all made perfect sense to her. As if she'd been studying interior design her entire life instead of just inheriting these memories overnight. That was the part that unnerved her the most. I shouldn't know what the hell a color story is, she whispered to herself, flipping through a stunning presentation filled with terms and concepts Kyle Thompson would have laughed at, let alone how to create one that speaks to the client's emotional landscape. She had been Kyle Thompson, a guy who barely knew anything about design, let alone running a successful design firm. Kyle's idea of interior decoration had been making sure the pizza boxes made it into the trash instead of piling up beside the couch. His design aesthetic could have been described as bachelor pad minimalism, where minimalism meant too broke and lazy to buy actual furniture. And yet, as she scanned the reports, she knew exactly what each proposal meant, what her clients wanted, how to position her firm's work in the best possible way. She understood the psychology behind the color schemes, the strategic placement of statement pieces, the subtle ways lighting could transform a space from merely functional to emotionally resonant. Emotionally resonant, she repeated with a soft snort. Listen to me. Kyle would punch himself if he heard these words coming out of his mouth. But they weren't coming out of Kyle's mouth. Were they? They were coming from Kristin's perfectly glossed lips, in a voice that was musical and authoritative in equal measure. More than that, she knew how to sit correctly at her desk, how to adjust her posture to give off an air of powerful confidence. Back straight, but not rigid. Shoulders relaxed, chin slightly raised, a posture that communicated competence without arrogance. The position felt natural, almost comfortable, despite being nothing like Kyle's habitual slouch. She knew how to talk with the other women in the office, engaging in casual workplace banter in a way that felt effortless, natural, as though she had done it her entire career. Earlier, when her junior designer had popped in with a fabric swatch question, Kristin had found herself discussing weekend plans, commenting on the woman's new haircut, and making a joke about their mutual dislike of a particularly difficult vendor, all while providing detailed feedback on the material selection. I actually knew her cat's name, Kristin marveled, recalling how she'd asked about Mr. Whiskers' digestive issues without even thinking about it. I've never had a conversation about a cat's digestive issues in my life. Kyle was a dog person. And then, of course, there were the heels. Kristin glanced down at the 4-inch stilettos on her feet, the red soles a flash of color against the plush cream carpet of her office. Kyle would have broken an ankle within 3 steps in these death traps, yet she had walked through the office in them as if they were flat sneakers. Her stride smooth, her balance perfect. She hadn't wobbled once, hadn't winced at pinched toes or aching arches. Her body just knew what to do. And that was terrifying. It's like being hijacked by your own muscles, she murmured, experimentally crossing and uncrossing her legs. The movement was fluid, elegant, nothing like the sprawl Kyle would have adopted. I don't even have to think about it. It was one thing to wake up in a new body. It was another to realize that she wasn't just inhabiting this body. She was becoming Kristin in every way. Focus, Thompson, she told herself firmly, straightening a pen that was already perfectly aligned with her notepad. Identity crisis, later. $1 million client, now. Now, her skills, habits, instincts, they weren't Kyle's anymore. They were hers. I don't even watch football the same way anymore, she realized with a start, remembering how she'd analyzed last night's game. Kyle would have been all about the stats, the plays, the raw numbers. Kristin had found herself noticing the dynamics between players, the subtle tells that indicated which way a running back might cut, the almost imperceptible signals between quarterback and receiver. It wasn't just that she knew different things, she processed information differently. Her mind made connections Kyle's never would have, saw patterns he would have missed, intuited motivations that would have eluded him completely. A soft knock at her door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Jason poked his head in. Tablet in hand, the Morgans just called from the car, he informed her. They're running about 5 minutes early. Overachievers. His tone suggested this was both unsurprising and slightly annoying. Of course they are, Kristin replied with a small smirk that felt natural on her lips. Heaven forbid they adhere to the agreed-upon schedule. Jason rolled his eyes in solidarity. Want me to slow them down in reception? I could misplace their visitor badges. Have it run a mysterious system update on the elevators. Tempting, Kristin chuckled, rising from her chair with an elegant motion that felt completely automatic. But no, let's be gracious winners today. Everything ready in the conference room. Perfection awaits, Jason confirmed. The team is assembled. The presentation is loaded, and I've strategically placed Catherine's chair where she'll get the best view of the digital renders. Charles will be too busy admiring his own reflection in the glass table to notice he's not the focal point. Brilliant as always, Kristin remarked, genuinely impressed by her assistant's cunning. What would I do without you? Crash and burn, spectacularly, he replied, without missing a beat. Or at least have much less entertaining client meetings. Kristin swallowed hard, pushing that thought aside for now. She had bigger things to worry about. One last check, she said, glancing at her reflection in the glass wall that separated her office from the conference room. Her appearance was flawless, not a hair out of place. Makeup, impeccable, outfit striking the perfect balance between authoritative and alluring. You look fantastic, Jason assured her, correctly interpreting her glance. Charles won't know what hit him. And Catherine will want to be your best friend by dessert. Let's hope so, Kristin replied, gathering her portfolio and tablet. $23 million buys, a lot of expectations, which you'll exceed. As always, Jason said with a confidence that was oddly reassuring. Remember, you've landed bigger fish than Charles Morgan. Have I? Kristin found herself genuinely curious about her past triumphs. Jason smirked. The Henderson estate. The Astor Plaza redesign. The Japanese consulate that every other firm in the city was salivating over. He shook his head admiringly. The Morgans should be honored you're taking their project. Kristin felt a surge of confidence that had nothing to do with Kyle's memories, and everything to do with Kristin's accomplishments. Whatever else had changed in this bizarre transformation, one thing was clear. Kristin Thompson was damn good at her job. You're right, she said, squaring her shoulders. Let's go make some magic happen. As she followed Jason toward the conference room, heels clicking authoritatively on the hardwood, Kristin realized something surprising. For the first time since waking up in this new life, she wasn't just playing a part, she was actually looking forward to the challenge ahead. Maybe becoming Kristin wasn't the worst fate in the world after all. The bigger question was, how much of Kyle would remain when the transformation was complete? From everything she had pieced together, this client was huge. Not just big, massive. Potentially life-altering for her business. Kristin tapped her Mont Blanc pen against her portfolio as her mind raced through the details she'd absorbed over the last hour. Potential full-package deal advertising and branding design. Property and interior design. And somehow, she had managed to get marketing included in the pitch as well. The contract sitting in her leather portfolio had more zeros than she'd ever seen on a single document. And that was just for the initial phase. Multi-million-dollar account. She whispered to herself, still not quite believing it. Kyle's biggest financial triumph was finding a $20 bill in his jeans pocket. This could be a game changer for her firm. The kind of client that would put Thompson Design in a whole new echelon, opening doors to even bigger projects, more prestigious clients, maybe even international expansion. Jason had mentioned something about offices in London and Tokyo. During their briefing, a possibility that seemed absurd until she saw the potential revenue this single contract could generate. But the part that unsettled her the most, she had never actually met the client before. All her interactions had been through emails, phone calls, and word-of-mouth recommendations. Despite the extensive briefing materials, despite the digital correspondence she'd reviewed, despite apparently chasing this account for months, Kristin Thompson had never been in the same room as the decision-maker, who could make or break her company's future. Fantastic, she muttered, adjusting a document that was already perfectly aligned on her desk. No pressure at all. Just have to charm a complete stranger who's ready to hand over more money than Kyle would earn in 3 lifetimes. Kristin had no idea what to expect. The client dossier included basic information: name, position, company history, but very little about personality, preferences, or pet peeves. The kind of human details that could make or break a high-stakes meeting like this. Would they be difficult, easygoing, cutthroat? The tech industry was notorious for eccentric billionaires with god complexes and impossible demands. Would she be facing someone who expected her to read their mind? Someone who would dismiss her ideas without a second thought? Someone who would nitpick every detail until the meeting descended into a battle of wills? You've got this, she told herself firmly, channeling confidence she didn't entirely feel. Kristin Thompson doesn't lose. Apparently, would her luck hold out and let her navigate this meeting effortlessly? Her grandmother had promised that luck would permeate every aspect of her new life. But how far did that extend? Would it help her say exactly the right thing at exactly the right time? Would it guide her through potential landmines in the conversation? Would it somehow magically ensure the client loved every aspect of her proposal? She could only hope. If ever there was a time for supernatural luck to kick in, she muttered, a multi-million-dollar pitch meeting would be it. She rose from her chair, pacing the length of her office in a way that felt practiced, familiar, a pre-meeting ritual perhaps. Her heels sank silently into the plush carpet as she moved, mentally reviewing key points of the proposal, rehearsing phrases that might land well, preparing rebuttals for potential objections. The exterior facade draws inspiration from mid-century modernism, while incorporating cutting-edge sustainable materials. She recited under her breath. The interior spaces balance minimalist aesthetics with organic elements to create environments that feel both sophisticated and welcoming. The words flowed naturally, the concepts clear in her mind in a way that would have been utterly foreign to Kyle. Where had this knowledge come from? How deep did Kristin's expertise go? Would it be enough? A glance at her watch. An elegant Cartier that probably cost more than Kyle's car told her the client would arrive any minute. Her heart rate quickened, despite her best efforts to remain calm.